Hi, I'm Steven. You can now watch UCF TV 24 hours a day on Bright House Digital Channel 1.
Hello everyone, I'm Charna Davis-Wiese and welcome to UCF Profiles. Our guest today is talking about something that maybe we need a little bit more instruction on, marriage. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Andrew Dare. Dr. Dare is an expert on all things relationships, and we're going to be talking about all the different experiences you have had with yourself across the ocean in Kenya, in Africa, and here in UCF and Central Florida community. And maybe we can all get a little bit of help in our own relationships as well. And you're also the executive director of the UCF Marriage and Family Research Institute.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, we started talking about your research now and your work now, and it interested me because this is Profiles, and we like to talk about how people got to where they are in their career, because we look at you as like, here, somebody's got it all together. You really had interest in the different sciences, the actual sciences, building and physics and biology, and here you are.
In the field of mental health and marriage and family. Yes.
Yeah, I guess maybe if we learn to build on our relationships, it would work better. So you're fascinated with bridges, you said.
Yes. Yeah, I am fascinated with a lot of hard sciences. As we were saying, in my undergraduate, I was a biology major with minors in chemistry and psychology, and actually decided to go the psychology route, but I still have a fascination, with biology and physics and things of that nature. And I think there's probably some part of me maybe that's trying to see how some of those, I call them hard sciences, even fit within social sciences. So
that's what I was going to ask you. Sometimes you think, are we pre-wired to behave the way we do at times? I have 3 children. You have 2 children, right?
2 children.
2 children. And even when they were little, they're very alike in how they're goal-oriented and things like that, and the things that they can control, but same house, same parents. The only thing that changed is we added a dog. And they're really different. And I wonder if they're hardwired.
Yeah, well, I tell you, that nature versus nurture, a lot of folks, still love to have that discussion, and I really think it's both. I think there is some hard wiring that is definitely there. My wife makes fun that my finger curves that way. My daughter, the same exact thing. There's some characteristics that I have with either my son or daughter that is identical, but I think nurture is also plays a very large role.
That you may be hardwired a certain way, but you're not doomed, or if it's bad, you can change. You have choice. The powerful mind.
I think you can, and my interest and passion in marriage and family therapy is really because recognizing both from clinical experience and in research just how powerful the impact of a child growing up in a stable, healthy, loving household. So, when I consider my work in marriage and family therapy and strengthening marriages, the real outcome for me, the real goal is the children, because that's probably one of the best things that can be done for kids is for them to grow up in a safe, stable, loving home with good role models of respect and nurturing and caring and love.
That's not something that's just an opinion. That's something that's backed up by statistics and research. When children are raised in a house with a happy marriage, they end up being happier themselves. Yeah,
that's and there's been some fairly solid research on that. there's the fragile family studies that was done. There's I think they're in their second edition of a book. I can't remember the publisher. It's Why Marriage Matters. And they really look at all the different research out there that discusses the benefits of children growing up in a healthy two-parent household. Now, that's not to say that single parents can't be good parents, and I think there's a lot of critics that will try to push that argument. It's just saying, you know, it makes it a lot easier for kids to grow up in a healthy household. And, you know, for many people that choose marriage, you know, it's something where I think it's beneficial, it's necessary to provide that assistance to really help those couples, because kids who are raised in high conflict households, kids of divorce, are 2 to 3 times more likely to suffer whatever ill we want to throw a dart at. And so I think it really is important work, and it's important societal work. There's a recent research brief that came out from some researchers from, I believe, the University of Georgia on the taxpayer cost of divorce and family fragmentation. And the cost is astronomical. And so it really is not only a social issue, but I think it's an economic issue, because there's so much monies that are going into, you know, correcting the problems of when marriages fail and when kids are raised in these, you know, very conflictual households.
You know, I was raised by a single mom. My parents were divorced when I was 1. And her reasoning was there were 2 sets of teenagers, his and hers, and they just did not like each other. They didn't like, it was just a lot of conflict. And she thought by lessening the conflict in the house, it would be so much better for me, because I was the baby. In retrospect, as an adult and in relationships, I'm realizing, and she did the best she could do. She really, really worked very hard. She was not educated. All of her children are highly educated. However, I never saw healthy conflict. I will run from any kind of conflict. I don't know how to, you know, in a healthy marriage, there is conflict. You still do fight, you don't get along. And I would imagine that when children see that, they learn that ways to deal with that and compromise and work together as well. Because like you say, a healthy marriage doesn't necessarily mean a marriage with no conflict ever, right?
Right, and it actually concerns me if there's no conflict whatsoever, because usually that means someone might be avoiding conflict or at least stuffing that conflict.
Or maybe 2 people.
Or 2 people, for example. You know, and I think it is healthy for kids to see that people can disagree and be okay. And I think a lot of kids, they see people disagreeing and things not be okay, and so there's a chance that that child might grow up to avoid conflict because they never saw a healthy role model of how 2 people can disagree. They can have an argument without being verbally, emotionally, psychologically, or physically abusive. You know, there's a lot of kids that don't see that. There's a lot of kids that they see, you know, when their parents fight, it's a physical fight, it's emotional abuse, it's psychological abuse. A lot of people don't realize that, you know, Orange County has one of the highest, if not the highest, domestic violence rate in Florida. And so, you know, it is an issue that is very significant. And so by providing, you know, by parents having tools to be able to be more effective in their relationship, it's beneficial for the child.
I find in my house, I have older siblings, and my sister will say, "Why are you telling them that?" My kids, my husband and I disagree, just like people do, but very rarely do we get angry about it. And every once in a while when we do, the kids are really freaked out. You know, that some people, you know, you can love someone and still be angry at them for a while, and I'll explain to them what's going on in my mind and why I think this is happening, and my sister and I, she says that's too much information. But I think it's good for them to know, yeah, I'm not real happy right now, but I'll be happy in an hour, and we'll work it out. And so I don't know. We'll have to see in the long run if that is the right thing to do. But I always feel that being honest with them, it might not be conflict, but being honest with them and letting them know what's going on helps them to deal. Because kids, the way they fight with each other, they almost expect parents to fight with each other the way they do, you know?
Well, and I mean, we can think of a child learning how to walk, and they're walking and they fall. They're going to look to the parent to see how should they interpret falling. And if the parent is crying, "Oh my God, Johnny, are you okay?" the kid will start crying. If the parent starts laughing, then the kid will think it's funny.
Is that why our first children are so afraid of everything?
Maybe, I don't know. I think in those situations, if they see you arguing and they are looking and wondering, I think it is good to explain, because then if not, you don't know what type of messages that they're attaching to that, or are they attributing it to something that that they did. They think, well, maybe you're fighting because of me. So I think it's good to have those discussions with kids.
You talk about tools. I remember all the time when we were all getting engaged, the kids, my friends who were Catholic went through a course that they had to go through, and what a great idea. And I remember the time they were like, "Oh, we're so busy, we don't really want to do this," but it was really a good thing, because you had said that marriage is one of the few things in life that we want to do well at, but nobody instructs us how to do it.
Right, yes. I think we, just by a sheer wanting to be good at it, people automatically assume that they're good at it, and then they're frustrated when the other person isn't responding in a manner that's consistent with what I would say might even be their delusion that they're being good at it. We have, in the past few years, we've been engaged in a lot of research on marriage and relationship education, not as a replacement for marriage therapy, but I think what the research community is realizing, or has realized, is that people get help for marital problems years after the problem begins.
And therapy is that. It addresses the problem.
And therapy addresses the problem.
It doesn't really give you a set of directions on how to make it better?
It can, but the example that I like to use is trauma surgery. If we look in healthcare is a hot topic these days. If, for some people, their first access to healthcare is a major heart attack where they have to be rushed into trauma surgery. Now, I'm sure if we look at the success rate of a trauma surgeon, and we look at the success rate of a cardiothoracic surgeon in private practice where people are scheduling surgeries, I imagine the trauma surgeon is going to have a lower success rate. And when you look at the research in marriage therapy, the success rate in marriage therapy is not as high as people think. Now, that's not to say marriage therapy is not an effective intervention, but what are people looking like when they get to marriage therapy? For many people, they're finding a safe environment to dump their spouse. The problems have gotten so significant, their ineffective strategies to deal with it has gotten so convoluted that they've got this almost web, or if you think of those rubber band balls, that's what it's like. That's what they're bringing to therapy. And
they must want the therapist to justify what they're feeling, saying, "Yeah, you're right."
Well, and
it's over.
And that's also a debated topic in the marriage and family therapy arena, is should marriage and family therapists take a stance on, I'm a marriage and family therapist that's going to help you to strengthen your marriage, or should we be a blank slate? So if you're coming saying you want a divorce, should we say okay? So again, there's a lot of debate, a lot of topics, that's going on. But one of the things we do know is that if we can provide people tools and strategies to communicate, to connect and confide, to, fight fair, then they're able to utilize those tools in a manner that will help prevent them from getting to that point where they need trauma surgery. And so I think that's what's exciting about this new field, or I shouldn't say new field, because pre-Cana and that's been around for a very long time, but I would say this surge, the federal government has a Healthy Marriage Initiative that's going on now. In 2006, there was $150 million in competitive grants, $100 million for healthy marriage grants, and $50 million for strengthening fatherhood grants. So there's a big push to really try to identify what can work to help strengthen marriages.
And we'll talk a little bit about those tools and about your trips to Africa as soon as we come back. Don't go away.
This is my UCF.
We're back. We're talking with Dr. Andrew Dare. We're talking about the new ways to strengthen marriages and strengthen families rather than just fixing problems, giving us tools to help make our relationships better. Now, you started back with way back when,
Way back when.
about 5 or 6 years ago,
ago.
with this really interesting project where you had how many families? 12 families?
The Stronger Marriages,
Stronger
Stronger Families. We actually had about 350 participants that came through that project in 3 years.
I stand corrected. That's a big difference. That's a big difference. And that was really the first step in looking at this.
That was. That was some federal dollars we got in a grant that we call Stronger Marriages, Stronger Families. And in that grant, we provided marriage and relationship education, premarital counseling, and marital counseling. And that project was from 2003 to 2006. That was probably the first demonstration grants. There's kind of a, when the Healthy Marriage Initiative and those dollars started flowing, that was one of the first group of grants that were funded. And I know we learned a lot in terms of, service delivery. We used a weekend workshop model, which was effective in some instances, but we're finding that an intervention over time has a greater impact. In the research that we did, we also found that because the folks had a choice of what intervention they wanted, and in looking at the participants who entered the different services, people who selected the marriage counseling opposed to the marriage education were more distressed in their relationship. So, I think that's good information to have in really validating kind of this hypothesis we have, or it's probably more than a hypothesis, this fact that we have that folks are really going into marriage counseling at a state where they're significantly more distressed. But it also, demonstrates that, folks are choosing, marriage and relationship education also when their relationship is in distress. Now, with the projects that we have now, we have got a project called the Supporting Healthy Marriages Together project. And there's actually 2 funding streams for that. We are recipients of one of some of the grants in 2006, and then we're also part of a demonstration, national demonstration project. So the Supporting Healthy Marriages is a national demonstration project with 7 sites across the country, random assignment, control group design. In our project, the participants, we are providing marriage education and family support services for low-income couples with children. They receive 30 hours of marriage education curriculum. They receive family support services. We have extended marital activities, extended family activities, and people are in our project for a year. So it's a very involved project. The company that's overseeing the whole thing, MDRC, they actually have another company that's actually doing the evaluation because it's such an extensive evaluation of 7 sites. And so it's fascinating to actually see the impact that these classes are having on these couples.
That's what I was going to ask you. What are you actually seeing? Some of the anecdotes.
You know,
is it mostly teaching them how to communicate?
It goes beyond communication. You know, there are different curricula out there. The curricula that we're using is PAIRS, and it's practical application of intimate relationship skills. And so PAIRS, you know, talks about, or they teach communication skills, connecting and confiding, conflict resolution. In that curriculum, we also talk about parenting and money management and things of that nature. So it goes beyond the general communication. Some other aspects of this curriculum, which was actually developed by a psychotherapist about 25 years ago, it actually even looks at, you know, kind of the luggage or the baggage that we might bring into a relationship in terms of this concept called the emotional allergy loop, which is how we have certain things that are emotional allergies.
They're triggers?
They're triggers. And our significant others are sometimes unknowingly a trigger, and then the way we respond to that also is their trigger. And so we get in this infinity
seem irrational,
loop.
but it's triggering something maybe from your past.
It's triggering something from your past, and you're responding to this person in the present with all the energy from the past. And so we can only imagine
so
how
your wife
problematic.
may be getting a lot of the ammunition really meant for your mother.
Probably.
And your wife has no idea about that.
No.
Is there one thing you're seeing over and over again that couples do make a mistake with? One tool that could help all the rest of us that,
Wow.
I know it's very hard to just pinpoint one
just
thing.
to pinpoint one thing. I would have to say connecting and confiding. There's a tool called the daily temperature reading. And, you know, in this tool that you would ideally use on a daily basis, you would share appreciations, you know, in terms of talking about what you appreciate the most. You would provide new information, any puzzles, you know, I've got this project I have to do, who's going to pick up the child, complaints with requests for change, and then you would end with wishes, hopes, and dreams. And if you're short on time,
So I'm thinking, okay, when am I going to do this? How about between 4 and 4:15?
But you know, it doesn't take that long.
No.
It sounds like it takes a long time, but this is something you could do
Get
in
into
5.
a habit of doing it.
Right, you can get into a routine, a schedule, but the appreciations and the wishes, hopes, and dreams are the most important. And we can think about, when is the last time you just shared an appreciation to your partner? When is the last time you shared a wishes, hopes, and dreams? And so we found that those two are the most important. I went to Kenya and I was in Mombasa and I did this training, and it was incredibly powerful because one of the things was I was surprised because I was expecting to have to make a lot of revisions and a lot of explaining. So I did a disclaimer that this is a Western relationship curriculum, and so I kind of qualified everything, and if there are concepts that doesn't fit culturally, let me know. And really there was only one concept, which was the stages of relationship, because there were people in arranged marriages, so the normal Western stages of relationship don't apply when it's an arranged marriage. But I was just amazed at how accepted and how powerful an impact this curriculum had, even with folks in Kenya.
You're not going to believe this. We're out of time. Will you come back
Sure.
so we can talk more about this?
Absolutely.
So basically, if we take anything away, tell people what you appreciate about them.
Oh, wow.
A little thing like that can really help, couldn't it?
I think it's significant. It's huge.
Well, I'm so glad you came and shared that with us today.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Darren.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for watching. We'll see you again next time on UCF Profiles.